This is partners in the process, 'cause we're built better together.
I picked up Ryan Stewman
Mm-hmm.
from going and seeing him and Andy together.
Okay.
And then when I picked up Stewman, then I started following Apex and got into Apex
Yeah.
and started messing with them too. And then I've met a lot of their people, and then there's a lot of guys up here that are messing around with Apex and stuff too.
Yeah, I
you know?
saw Brandon James had done it, so I started following them. I bought Brandon's book.
Yeah.
I haven't read it yet, but I have been following a lot of his stuff, and was Apex is on my list of one to go check out.
Yeah, Stewman's, everybody's got such a different style.
Yeah.
And I admire their different styles,
Yeah.
and I take pieces from all of them
Yep.
because I see myself in a lot of them, but never at 100%.
yeah,
you know what I
no,
mean?
yeah.
You're like, I like this, and then they go, like, if I could pick probably 10 or 15% of everybody, it's spot on.
Yeah.
Like 10 or 15% of all these different people is like 100% who I am. And then the other 85%, you're like,
Yeah.
90%, you're like, I just don't buy into that. It's a
Yeah.
little too much.
Yeah.
So you take all these pieces from everybody, but then unfortunately, you have to buy into everybody's stuff to get
Yes.
that 15, 20% that you're wanting. So, and Stewman's kind of like that. I mean, I think he's got a very sketchy past,
Yeah.
but he's very honest about it. He's very forthright about it. And then he talks about how, he uses that as his motivation and his govern to not screw up anymore. Because if he does, everything he's got, he's going to lose.
He's gone. It's gone. Yeah. No,
So-
I get that. I do the same thing with those guys. I check them out, and it's like, well, I kind of like this tidbit. It's why I just order so many different books and mess with so much stuff with different ones. Is no one has I would say Andy has the most stuff that I like.
Yeah.
But I'm not an Andy Frischella, so I can't model anything I do. And follow. I like a lot of his ideas. I like a lot of his stuff, but like we're not even the same human being.
Yeah.
But I do resonate with his content the most.
Yeah. I like how just honest he is.
Yeah, he's just brutally honest.
He's brutally honest. He's gotten to a point where he gives
no fucks.
zero fucks
None.
about what people
None.
think, and we need more of that. We need people
Yes.
that are able to stand up and just speak their mind,
Yes.
because it's what needs to be done. It's what
And-
needs to be said.
It's really hard, and I've had to learn that with people reaching out to me with questions or different things, that sometimes you just got to tell them the truth.
Yeah.
There's some, people can beat around the bush. I've had friends over the years that were like, you're fucking stupid. And I got offended. And then like a year later, I was like, hey man, thanks. You're a real friend. Everybody else was like, oh, so great. We're so proud of you. And then when everything fell apart, they're like, oh, we knew it, but we didn't want to hurt your feelings. Whereas one person was like, you're a fucking moron. Don't do that.
Yep.
And I was like, man, you're such an asshole hating on me. Like, I didn't get super offended, but I was like, well, that's kind of a dick move. And then when everything fell apart, everybody's like, oh, well, we seen that coming.
Yeah.
I went back to him. I'm like, thank you. He's like, hey, just trying to be a real friend. I was like, nope, I took it as you being just a dick, and cool. And I'll never, it's one of those you kind of like file it away. Like there's been different things, different people over the years just.
And that's one of those
file it.
mindset shifts.
Yeah.
And we talk about that because it's something we actually had to do with each other.
Right.
Mhm.
I don't take criticism super well. I never have.
Yeah.
I have.
And so I didn't like to give it because he's
She
not going
didn't
to
know
take
how
it
I was
very
going to
well.
react to it.
Yeah.
I'm not going to take it
Right.
very well. So now I've gotten to the point where if she gives me a criticism, rather it's very honest or it's she never gives it to it mean. It's never delivered in a way that's malice, but she might deliver it in a way where I'm like, well, that kind of was deep. And then I'm like, well, let me think about it. I told her last night, I'm like, I got to the point where I'm like, let me just pretend for a minute that you're 100% correct.
Yeah.
Okay. So let me put myself in your shoes, and I'm gonna pretend that you're 100% correct, and let me run that scenario through my head and see how it looks. And then I'll mess with it for a little bit, and I'll toss it around. And I'm like, yeah, you're 100% right.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? But I think the ability to be able to communicate in that way and understand that it's like an adult mind. It's not only an adult mindset; it's a mature next level mindset.
And it comes with confidence too.
Yeah.
You know
No,
what I mean?
for
And your
sure.
confidence, my confidence has grown more because of Bobby, because of him giving me those accolades and really
pushing
me. Absolutely. It's made a big difference for us. And that I think is where the confidence is going, to where I can tell you that's a bad idea, that's a good idea, or whatever.
It borderlines too. It comes down to who's giving you the critique too.
Right.
That's different. I find a lot of people, one of the fastest things I learned in business was how many people feel the need to give you advice that have absolutely no place giving it to you. But when someone that you respect or is, above you or on your field or in your mind that way gives it to you, you're like, oh. But when like somebody else, and having to learn to open my mind to that and not get offended by it too, because free advice is everywhere. And that was one of the biggest things, like as success started coming, how many people want to interject and be like, you know what you should do.
Oh yeah.
And it's like, that's cool. Can I have a large fry, not a small fry? I appreciate it.
I mean, but
And
that's
sometimes it's not bad advice though. You have to be open to it. But at
Yeah.
first I was like, the fuck are you? Yeah, like,
yeah.
and it's a maturity thing and a mind shift. The speaking competition I did, I had someone come up and was like, you shouldn't have won. And this girl gave a horrible
Really?
speech.
She told you that?
Yeah, her brain is just baked. And she was explaining, she's like, you played the judges, you did this. I said, okay, I got a question for you. And I normally I'd be like, fuck you. And I was like, I've learned all about words this
Right?
weekend.
You gotta find my
learned
zen.
all about
We're gonna
words.
chill
So she was,
out.
and
Yeah.
I told her, I said, did you have a scorecard? She goes, no. I said, well, you're right. I did play to the judges. They're scoring me. I said, I'm a professional competitor. I compete in martial arts, kickboxing, the whole nine. I've competed stuff my whole life. My kids have competed stuff. Our garage is full of awards that they've won. My basement's full of stuff I've won. I played to the judges. I listened to everything the judges said all weekend. I knew what they wanted and I knew what I needed to do to close them.
Mm-hmm.
So that's what I got up and performed, because you guys all got up and shared a message, but this is a competition and they're looking for do. She was like, well, that's just manipulation. I was like, well, let me point it this way. I did a professional boxing match last year for charity. I'm a kickboxer. I did not kick Ryan in the head because the rules of the match were I could only box. Did I play to the judges or did I follow the rules of the event? She was like, damn, you got me. I was like, that's all it is. I said, I'm not offended. I get what you're saying.
But I didn't lie.
No, and
Everything
like
I said
told
up
her,
there,
I said my
meant.
message was completely legit. It was a legitimate story. I was like, you can look at the letter that I read from my student. You can also, I said, here's the photo of me from yesterday when I was heavy set as a kid. I was like, nothing I said was fictional, but I listened to the judges on what they wanted, and I made sure to put each and every little piece in. But I was just proud that I didn't just get defended. I did react. I was like, afterwards, I'm like, I really learned a lot of shit this weekend. I told Jesse, I'm like, you don't realize that was a big moment for me, especially for the fact that I don't respect anything she said this weekend. So I did not feel the need to even discuss this, but I forced myself to.
That's a really crazy place to get, where not only do you not push those people away, but you invite them. You're like, now hold on a second, let's work this out.
And that's
let's
what the
talk
greats
about
do.
this.
Right.
They do.
That's what the greats do.
And it's not to win, it's to hopefully learn something.
Yes.
They can learn from me. And you know what? I might think you're irrational, but I might learn something from you.
Yeah.
You might say something that resonates with me where I'm like, you're not unvalidated there, but your perspective is different than mine. The reason I did this is because I'm looking at it from this side of things. Like you said,
And
I'm looking
it
from the
ended up being
judges.
a great conversation.
And then she goes, that's productive. We have conversations sometimes with, like, it could be religion, it could be race, politics. Politics is a big one. And I can defend my position and I can accept with whatever your position is, and we don't have to fight about it.
Yeah.
That's a mature thing to do. I may think you're an idiot.
Yeah.
But that's okay. Oh, you do you. I don't have a problem
exactly
with that.
something I would
But they're
say.
even teaching our kids that in school, though, because like when our kids go to school and they give them a rubric, they're giving you a rubric so you can make the best grade you can off this project. You just have to follow the rules and do give me what I'm asking, and you're going to get a great grade.
And then the kids get upset when they're like, I put so much work into that. I'm like, but you didn't hit this, you didn't put that in there, you didn't do this.
You
And
got
he's
a
like,
3 over here, you got a 5 over
and I'm
here.
like, no, this right here was your cheat card.
Yep.
This
Yeah.
was put all this in here, and that's all she wanted. She just wanted you to put that in there.
At DECA State Monday, when I judged, they had different points that they had to hit. So basically, they were given a business plan. So the way this works, if you don't know anything about it, so they role play.
Okay.
So I was judging role play. So basically, they give the kids 30 minutes. They give them a sheet. What it was, I had a charcuterie board business that had declining sales. We were known for our jams. Everything else came from out of house. What can we do to raise our sales? That's all the information they give them, which makes me want to just throw up because I'm like, dude, I've got so many questions.
There's a lot of information missing.
There is a whole lot.
Yeah.
Like as a
Hold on,
business
let me get
owner,
myself. Oh my gosh.
I kept
yes.
sitting there looking at the kids after they get done. I was like, I just want you to know this is way harder than you think it is. And no matter how you score, I told everyone, no matter how you score today, they did not give you enough information. Like that's the whole point of the drill. But they gave them 5 different points that they had to get. Was there a mix? Was it creative? Was it this? And so many of them come up and did a good little presentation. They were nervous, but they didn't hit all 5. The kid that got the highest score for me came in and he went through each one of those points because they give them the thing and then they give them what their points are. and he had it all wrote out, and then he put 3 dots for each one, had 3 examples of each one, and then brought it to a conclusion on the back. He was not the most charismatic. He probably did not understand the question as well as everyone else, but he understood the assignment. And so then my black belt Kindle, I had her meet me before I left. I'm like, hey, when you do the role play and they give you those.
Is she the tall
what do you-
brunette?
Yes. I was
Okay.
like, what do you do? And she goes, I write down each one of those. I was like, good girl, you're going to do well today. I was like, that was the point. But now one girl but everybody come up and sign your paper. So I'm here. I've heard we've had a decline in sales. And they were kind of nervous for her. So one girl comes up, she's like, you know what I'm going to do for you? And points me with her pen. I was like, ooh, what are you going to do?
Yes.
Now she
You've got me.
missed all the points.
Yeah.
But I stopped her at the end. I was like, you've got something no one else in here's got. Don't let anyone change it. She goes, yeah, people always tell me I'm arrogant. I was like, no, you're confident and you've got something there. Because when she did, she sat down, pointed her pen and turned. I was like, ooh, I like
Yes,
this.
yes,
Everybody
yes, yes.
else was like, thank you, Mr. It was like a bad job interview.
Yeah.
And I told her, I was like, don't listen to your teachers. Go to school. I was like, but follow me on social media.
Yes.
Follow some of my friends on there. You're going to learn so much cool information. I was like, you've got something that I haven't seen anyone else in this room have. And she's like, really? Thank you. And then she started asking me questions about business. And it was so cool. Her score was not very good because she missed all the call points.
Yeah.
But I loved the way she like popped in the chair,
Yeah.
pointed her pen at me. I was like, good for you. That's
Because
going to
she's
take.
the one you remember.
Well, but I told her, I was like, the other guys that wrote out all the little stuff, they're going to make a great HR department lead one day. I was like, at the company you own. I was like, that's
Correct.
how this is going to work.
Right.
I was
Yeah.
like,
and I
they're-
can see that right
yeah, I
now
was
in
like,
you.
Yes,
Yeah.
yes. I told
Yes.
her, like, these other dudes are great. They're addressing it in a way that an employee would address it. I was
Yeah.
like, because her whole thing was marketing. Well, if someone presented me a business problem with that little bit of background, that's the first thing I go to. Well, we need to advertise, we need to brand, because you can't, what else can you do? You don't know why it's declined. You don't know, maybe their meats suck. Maybe the boards look bad. You don't know, but marketing can fix all that. So let's just go with that. They really didn't need the mix. That was part that was killing me. And then they asked them, we had to ask them, should we or shouldn't we interview our clientele about what we should change? And everybody's like, oh, yes, definitely. We need to listen to clients. And I'm like, no, you don't.
Like,
No, you
I think
don't.
feedback's important.
Feedback's important.
but it
you
doesn't
don't-
mean you got to listen to them.
No, you don't
You
need
had-
to ask them what you should sell.
You had made a post that I really resonated with when you were talking about the customer always being right.
Oh, yeah. Well,
Okay.
yeah.
1000% correct.
It is.
You know, the customer can speak their voice, doesn't
Yes.
mean that they're always right.
No, and you have
And like
to
you
listen
said, you
to
get
them.
lied. Yes, you get
Yes.
lied to.
Yep.
They get told that you said things you didn't say. I know what the contract says. I know what I told you I'd provide, and I know what I did.
Yeah.
Okay. At the end of the day, that doesn't make you right just because you're the customer. Because then if everybody thinks that they're going to be right, they're just going to all mow over you.
Well, and when I worked for Jiffy Lube, that's how they treated it. The customer's always right. They always took the side of the customer, and they would just walk all over the employee.
Yeah.
We had to sign a waiver. It was when I put in, right after that's when I put in my 2 weeks, we had an EMS screen on the computer, and you click on it, and it said on there, synthetic oil required on, it was probably the newer Challengers or something. It was a 4-door Chrysler fleet car, but it said in the EMS screen, so one of my sales guys would use that to upsell synthetic. Well, we were supposed to go off the other chart that we had. Well, because we did that, it almost got them into a lawsuit, and they made us sign paperwork claiming that we did that on our own free will, blah, blah, blah. I was like, but it's on the screen that we're supposed to check if we have questions. Well, because they were looking at getting their butts in trouble, they immediately sided with the customer. They did it all the time. I had a motor blow up. Well, if a motor blew up, that came out of the manager's bonus because it was a warranty. It went to a warranty of the store, but it was also basically that we didn't do the safety check correctly, so we voided the procedures. The guy basically gave me a wink wink that it was the ex-husband's vehicle and he was the new boyfriend, and that's how the plug fell out. He didn't realize it came out of my wallet. That came out of my bonus. The $3,800 for his motor came out of my bonus. And I remember going to him being like, hey, this guy's full of shit. Like he even went, he gave me the wink and they were like, oh no, no. Because they didn't care. It came out of my bonus.
Yeah.
They just didn't have to pay me a bonus.
Yeah.
And so that's something that I've always done with the painters. To a fault, I fought customers.
Yeah.
To a fault, and like, no, I will stand up for them. It doesn't always pay off because the employees aren't always loyal to it, but
I'll look at
right.
every
They're
situation.
not always right.
I'll
Yeah,
look at
but-
every situation. My
yeah.
guy might have been wrong in that situation. I have had the instance where my guy was wrong.
Yeah.
You know, he acted in an inappropriate way. He said the wrong things. He didn't follow procedure. And in that case, yeah, it's our fault. But I mean, recently I had that actually happen.
Really?
Probably this last week. Yeah, I had
Yeah.
a guy. He didn't follow procedure. Now, if I would have listened to what he told me and just
he
went to
did it
bat,
perfect. Yeah.
he'd have burned me.
Yeah.
But I talked to her. I talked to him. I talked to my manager who spoke to them in between
Yeah.
to see what his point of view was. I looked back at logs. I looked at everything. And then when I confronted him with the truth, he folded.
Yeah.
But if I went straight to bat for him, my company would have looked ridiculous.
No, and that's what you have to watch. And I've been burned on that because I've had more customers lie to me than I have employees.
Yeah.
So I have done that in the past where I just went to bat for the employee because I took it personal. We all, you know,
Yeah,
they tell
absolutely.
you not to, but man, that's the hardest
You
thing.
can't
when
you
own a
can't
business.
separate those two.
It's you
completely.
get better at it, but
Yes.
it's very, very hard.
You're
to do
emotionally
that.
invested in this. This
Yes.
is your baby. Your
Yeah.
name is on that trust. Your name is
Yep.
on that business.
Yep.
Your name is on there.
Well, and we'll
so
have
at the end of the
people
day,
email us and confirm colors on a house and then be like, well, I don't like it. You guys suggested it. Well, you asked us for a suggestion. We said, here's 3. You picked 1. That doesn't make me liable for your color. And I've actually went in and repainted a house once just because the first time I fought it, it bit me in the rear end. Lady badmouthed me everywhere.
Yeah.
It wasn't worth it. So on the second time it happened, went in and repainted it. Well, then she found an issue with the trim. And she started messing the trim up. She was scratching at it. It's peeling. It's peeling. I'm like, that's because you have to give it 30 days. It's in our paperwork to cure. You can't just take a thumbnail to it that night. It was a nightmare. It still bit me in the rear end. But there's just some crazies. We get 2 a year. It's a little less when I run all the bids. I try to not bid anything over the phone or by photo because I don't get a vibe for the person.
Right.
Yeah.
I've showed up at houses before. I showed up at one and the whole house was empty. The guy had a table, a chair, a spoon. And I was like, oh, you're going to chop my employees up. Okay.
Yeah,
cool.
yeah.
I was like, we're out. He was just very odd. He was like, sure, look around. I'm like, no, I'm good, man. I've actually been in a lot of these. I'm going to get out of here because I didn't have my pistol on me. I was like, I'm out. Guns in the truck.
What is it was just like a scene from Dexter.
It was very odd. It reminded me of definitely a few of the serial killer type movies or
Yeah.
the weird ones where the guy's got a spoon he cleans every night. And yeah, it was weird. I text the office. I'm like, nope, don't worry about sending a bid to this one. I'm not sending employees in that house.
So I know you've got Boyer Academy,
Yes.
which we will touch on. And Boyer Painting.
Yes.
I'm interested to understand kind of the beginnings of Boyer Painting.
Okay.
And one question I would
Yeah.
really like to know is, how did your experience selling a gun in 6th grade?
Not gun, gum.
Okay.
Gum. Did it say
It
gun?
came across
Dude,
as
I
gun.
typed.
And I was like,
yeah.
this is going to be an interesting
No,
question.
gum,
okay.
gum.
So explain. I'm like, that's pretty dark, but whatever.
No, my childhood wasn't that bad.
I know. I'm
Wow.
like, this is going to be crazy. So anyway, so then how did that experience lead you into like, hey, I sold this gum. Now I want to go into business for myself.
So I always kind of and I didn't realize this until recently. I actually need to message my brother-in-law this. My brother-in-law owned used bookstores, and I always was enthralled with entrepreneurship. My dad hated his job at General Motors. My dad could have played professional baseball. He was supposed to go out for the St. Louis Browns. That's showing his age to a summer training thing for them. My grandfather said, absolutely not. You're going to work at GM. Got my dad a job at GM in 1960. My dad will be 82 this month.
Wow.
He got him the job. My dad was going to quit. He was downstairs at the house in Breckenridge Hills and could hear my grandfather. My dad was in the pit where the trucks had come across, the 1960 trucks, and they would take the gas tank and they would turn and then put it up in there. It was the worst job in the plant, but that's where he started. My grandfather's upstairs telling my grandmother he's weak, ain't going to be able to do it. Well, my dad was adopted, always kind of had a chip on his shoulder from it. And so he stuck with it, didn't go to play baseball. Ended up in a labor relations rep. You know, I was a child of the 80s, one family household. Dad made over $100,000 a year at GM. Good job. And he always pushed me to work for myself. He goes, I fucking hate my job. He goes, I loved it for years. I don't like playing the politics. I don't like the BS. He goes, don't get caught up in a job that you're stuck for the money. He said, I provide a good lifestyle and I've got a good position, so I'm there, but I hate it. So he always pushed me to do that. I didn't know that I wanted to. Looking back on it, though, I always kind of naturally had that.
Yeah.
So he had bought me, we were at Schnucks Family, bought me a pack of Bazooka bubble gum. I went into 6th grade. We were allowed to chew gum in 6th grade at Zumwalt North Middle. That was the first time that we were allowed to do it. So it was kind of a big deal. So I took the pack of gum to school, and it was a big pack of Bazooka. Bazooka was like 35 cents a pack or something like that. Somebody's like, hey man, you got a piece of gum? I'll buy it from you. Yeah, 25 cents. I come home that day, the whole pack gone. And I had like $3 or $4, something like that. I don't remember what it was. I was like, I need to go to Schnucks. So I went up to Schnucks and bought more gum, bought 2 more packs, sold them, kept doing that for about a week or 2. Well, another guy at school seen what I was doing. Well, we had Pat Keys was a like candy ice cream place down the street from the school. Well, he was walking down there, and the old pullover starter jackets, he was stealing boxes of Bubblicious. Well, then he could sell Bubblicious at the same price because he was stealing it.
Yeah.
And shut me down. Who wants Bazooka when you get Bubblicious? And I learned a really good business lesson at a young age that my cost of goods versus his cost of goods, he was able to have a superior good, same price, shut me down. I didn't realize that till later. I just stopped.
Yeah.
But after that, any chance I got, if I was at the flea market, so at the Wentzville flea market, you can buy used bikes. Well, a GT Performer only looks like a GT Performer to people that don't know what a GT Performer is. Well, Western Automotive on Main Street in O'Fallon sold the decal kits. So I would buy a bike there, sand it down, paint it a real cool color. My dad would take me up there. I'd walk up there because back then you could walk everywhere. And I'd buy Performer decals, throw it on it, steel wool the mags, put new tires, whatever. I'd buy all the stuff, put it together, and then sell it to one of my friends for $50. Whatever. Bought a lawnmower, did the same thing, painted a lawnmower up, sold it to a neighbor. I just kind of realized I could do that. And I didn't really do it because of a money thing. I just liked fiddling and fixing things up and learned that people would pay me for it.
So you like the flip, you like the chase of the I can take my 25 cents and turn it into $3.
Yeah.
So
and I
speak.
went on to do it with cars. Once I got old enough to drive, I'd pick up a car, bought a Cavalier one time that needed a front end, found a front end for it. I got like $300 in a car. I used it for good. I had a brand new Camaro. I didn't like driving it to work, putting the miles on it. So I drove this beater Cavalier all the time, which was fun because I drive it everywhere. People would make fun of me. Then I'd pull up in the Camaro at one point and they're like, whose is that? I was like, well, it's mine. It's just parked at the house. My dad was cool. If I had a new car, let me put it in the garage next to his. And so then I sold it, and I just always kind of made my money back on stuff. Whether I wouldn't always say I'd turn a profit, but I'd drive them. I'd get my money out of them. I've only got, over the years, maybe one vehicle I lost money on. I think maybe
you're gonna eventually.
Maybe,
I mean,
and it was
we
one
did
of
that
those,
too.
yeah.
I was flipping Peterbilt trucks at one point in time, and so the market was real hot on them. I was going out to California and buying them because out there they were doing away with them.
Oh, okay.
So they were pre-emissions trucks. They didn't want them in the state no more, so they wouldn't register them. So people who had all these trucks fleets out there, they had to get rid of them by law. They could not re-register them.
Oh, shit.
So they were selling them dirt cheap, but nobody wants to go to California. Like, it's all the way out on the coast. Well, I was talking to her. I was talking to one of my workers. I was like, screw it. We'll get a one-way ticket. We'll fly out there. I'll buy these things for less than half what I can sell them out here for. We'll bring it back. We'll put some stacks on it, polish it up, paint, stuff like that. I might dump another $2,000 into it and double my money. Yeah. So we did that for years. So I totally understand.
You just finally bust on one. And it's honestly, I bought a 78 Corvette pace car off a customer. I was bidding her house. Ended up, the car needed a lot more work after a motor and this and that, and then going to sell it. And Corvette guys are such a pain in the ass. Well, that's not the numbers matching. I know it's a new roller motor that has way less miles, and the car has 50 more horsepower than it had factory. I know it's terrible. I didn't keep the shitty numbers matching on it.
But then it won't be worth as much
and
later,
I'm like,
50
it's a
years
78.
from now.
Well, I told him, I was like, it's not a 69 4-speed car. It's a 78 whatever. So I ended up trading it to a friend for a Mustang. I made the best out of it, but it was the first one that I was like,
so how's that transition then? Did you get a job as a painter? Because I resonated with the fact that you said
I started teaching martial arts.
Yeah, okay.
I've been in martial arts my whole life, and I was wanting a job in the evenings. I wanted to work overnight. And I had a friend that was a bartender at America's Pub down at Westport. I had went down to apply as like a doorman or something. She kind of had to work your way up. Well, randomly, I got a phone call one day, said, hey, we got a bartender position opened. You were on our books. Jill spoke for you, got the job. And I did the bartending school. I went down, learned how to make drinks down at Westport. They had another bartending academy or college or something. I forgot I even did that until I just said that. Yeah, I forgot. I went down and actually got certified to be a bartender. Wow, I've done a lot of goofy shit. And I was talking to one of the black belts, Don, that was he was lower ranked than me, but he's older than me. And he was like, man, if you're a real man, you'd come to work for me. Well, I knew that they had trucking, but I didn't know. I knew they painted the trucks. He painted, so I didn't understand what it was. And I'm like, Don and I would always go back and forth screwing with each other. We got in trouble at tournaments for talking smack. Like people in our division went up and was like, Matt and Don are being really mean. And we were like, sorry, we were just talking smack.
Just trying to get in your head a
So
little bit.
I
It's
was,
competition.
it was like 2 days later. I hadn't went in for the job yet. And he goes, we'll bring you as a painter's apprentice. I'm like, whatever, I can do whatever you can do. I don't mind painting. I painted some houses with some friends over the years, and I didn't dislike it. I was like, sure. Well, my instructor called me. She said, Don, get you a job? Yeah. Why? She goes, don't screw this up. I was like, I don't screw things up. What are you so worked up about? She goes, well, that's a union painter's apprentice. You don't just get those. Oh, no shit. She goes, yeah, don't mess this up. Okay. Painted for him I was laid off twice, but about 15 years.
Wow.
Just liked it. I liked the job. I didn't mind dealing with the people on the job sites. And we would work side jobs like crazy.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I was down for it. I liked fast cars, so I was down to work anytime I could. I'd work every night, every weekend. I had a 04 Ford Lightning I bought from Mid Rivers Lotus.
Yeah.
8,000 miles on it. And finally, an O'Fallon cop stopped me one day. He's like, man, you got to put plates on this. I was like, bro, he goes, I know, I see you going to work. Cause he was always sitting at Quick Trip on Bryan Road. He goes, I see you going to work in dark. He goes, and when I'm coming back on shift, I see you coming back still wearing your paint clothes. He's like, but bro, I can't keep looking the other way. He said, you drive past here every day. I was like, I'm working on it. So I went in that next day. I was like, hey, I got to leave at lunch, guys. I've got to go get it licensed. The cop didn't ticket me, but was like, come on, dude.
Yeah.
Your truck is noticeable. It's a charcoal gray Lightning.
Oh, those are beautiful, by the way.
Oh my God.
love
Biggest regret I ever had. I sold it. I traded off. I took 20 grand for it and bought a 2008 350Z down at Bommarito. And I did it because everybody kept hitting me up to haul stuff. And I'm like, it's a race truck. And my dad actually got in it and got like a little bitty scuff on the suede with some grease. And I was like, gone. This is a numbered truck. I'm not going to tolerate it. I did. I went down and traded in on a Z. I think it took me 3 days. I called a friend of mine that was the manager down there. I was like, bro, I need a Z. He's like, I can put you in a brand new one, better than put you in a used one. Come on down. And I literally was sitting out front. They stole that. They got a great deal on that truck. But my buddy of mine yelled at me too. He's like, take that truck home, back it in your dad's garage, and don't look at it again until you're 40. Recently, I sent him a text message. I see one of them going for like 80. I'm like,
yeah, it was one of the first. It's the first supercharged vehicle I ever drove. Was a Ford Lightning. I test drove an 03. I think it was from the Ford dealership in Union, Missouri.
Oh.
They had it sitting up there. It was beautiful. It was bright red, cherry red, and I test drove it. And I never drove anything that was supercharged before, and I never even drove anything that was turbocharged. But so that was my first like air induction vehicle, and I was like, that sound of that supercharger is intoxicating.
It was fun too because
that.
that was when the Dodges came out with Dodge got a Hemi in it, and it was too funny because they'd all want to race me on the highway, and when I'd hit it and they'd hear the whistle, they'd look, and that was the last. I mean, I would just walk them, but it was too funny because when I would punch it the right speed and that thing would whistle, and I didn't have the louder valve on it or anything, it was stock. But yeah, there was something about that whistle. I even now when I hear the Hellcats and stuff, you hear the videos of them whistling. That supercharger whistle's a cool sound.
I've had a Hellcat Challenger. I had a TRX. On the TRX, I put an upgraded air intake on it. Yeah, a JLB down in South County or Hillsboro, somewhere down there. They make it, and you take all the plastics and stuff off and put that thing on, and it's so loud, you can't hear the stereo. All you hear is the whining.
I bet.
And it's just like, but what happens is your fuel gauge is just constantly dropping.
Yeah.
Just constantly.
Well, and that was the issue with the Lightning is that was in 07, right when gas was going through the roof. And I remember the first time I went to fill it up, it was like $80. And yeah, and I was still in my apprenticeship. I wasn't making full wages or anything. I was wanting a house and everything else. I was
darn near $100 for a tank of fuel.
And this was at an age when I was single, running around racing all the time. So I was like, this is not going to work out. And it was funny, but that just kind of sparked me painting and doing that. And my wife and I were saving money for a house.
So when did you meet her?
2010. Well, technically in 2000. So technically her and I went to high school together, but I didn't know her in high school. I graduated with her sister. When I opened the Taekwondo school, several friends from high school reached out. My now sister-in-law reached out and said, my sister has a couple kids. One's old enough for your class. I think they'd really benefit from it. Can I send her up? So they came in and signed up the school, were training with us, doing their thing. And she got laid off from her job. And she worked at a chiropractic office. And she was like, she come in office crying. She's like, I pull the kids out. I can't train them anymore. I was like, well, I only had like 10 students. I'm like, listen, I need bodies in the school. Because that was the trouble I had when I opened. I didn't have anybody. People would walk in. I'm like, dude, I'm a great instructor. I love what I do. And they're like, yeah, looks like it. They look out in the lobby. Like everything was empty.
Crickets.
I'm like, I learned a valuable lesson too. Market your business before it's open. That way you have bodies. Learn that lesson. I learned a lot of lessons the hard way, and I'm thankful for it. But she signed up, And I told her, I was like, why don't you help me with some emails? I got some people that owe money. We were just taking checks. I wasn't doing anything automated at the time. I was like, I need you to make some phone calls. Just help me out and I'll train the kids. No worries. So she came in. Well, I had been dating somebody and her and I were at the school and I was building some shelves in the back. She was sending some emails for me. The boys were I think they were with their grandparents for the weekend. She goes, I'll come up, get all your paperwork taken care of. And I was like, you want to grab something to eat? Like, we just were friends. We talked up the school all the time. We joked around. The parents always teased us about stuff, but it wasn't that to us. And I was like, let's grab something to eat. And we went to 54th Street and we had dinner. And I remember leaving and I was literally going to the girl I was dating's house to see her. And I was like, man, I remember standing there, like getting in my truck going, man, I really had a good time. Like, I didn't want to go there. I wanted to continue talking with her. We had such a great time. It was just so natural to talk and enjoyed being around each other. I was like, I was 28, 29, maybe I probably turned 29 by then because my birthday's in March. So the school opened in January. So I was probably 29, but I was still like just chasing girls. I wasn't having a conversation with a woman and an adult. And it was just different. I remember just scratching my head, like, oh, it's so weird. So we just kept doing our own thing. I, went over with the girl I was dating and we just kept ended up hanging out. So then we started seeing each other like on the down low. We didn't want the school to know, didn't want the kids to know anything. Now looking back on it, like when we we were at an event and a friend of mine stopped by. I was like, what's going on? And my dad's like, that's his girlfriend. We're like, Dad. And everybody's like, you guys suck at hiding this. We were like, no, we did really good.
Yeah, no, nobody knew.
Nobody had a clue.
Everybody's like, we all knew.
They're like, we all knew. I was like, oh, okay.
But that was the fun part for us is that nobody knew.
Yeah,
or that we at least thought nobody knew. And that was fun. It was like, it was our little secret,
Yeah,
we'd sneak out on lunch and meet each other for lunch and have lunch together. And then we'd show back up separately at different times. And
you do all the things. Like she'd come up to school, the boys would be having something like an aunt or an uncle, whatever. They'd be with someone and she would stop by the school before going out. We'd just sit there and talk. We were friends. We would talk about whoever I was dating or whatever her and her friends were going to do or, just joking around and cutting up. And we didn't think anything of it. And next thing you know, it's 15 years later, still together, ended up married. Like we just, and it was one of those that neither one of us was like, yeah, I want to date that one. Like there wasn't like us trying. She always said that, her whole goal was just because I was arrogant and she was, just prove that she could pick me up. But there wasn't, it just was, that was what was so wild.
Challenge was a challenge.
Yeah, it was a challenge, but it was just wild for the two of us because we didn't expect it. And one of the big reasons we started hanging out is I would go, all the kids at the dojo would call me, hey, Master Matt, you gonna come to our birthday party? Well, it was really weird being a 29-year-old single dude going to 6-year-old birthday parties, but I was new with opening the business.
Hard to explain, at least.
Well, it just felt weird. And like back then, I was 29, the 40-year-old moms had just chased. It was bad. It was bad. So I would be like, hey, are you taking the boys to a birthday party for Pace was the first one. And I was like, can I ride with you? Because these are just weird, but I didn't have anything else to do. I was broke, opened my first business. I was single, just sitting around my apartment, twiddling by then I moved back in with my dad because he was like, if you're going to open your business, give up your apartment, put your stuff in storage, move back to the house, save yourself that money.
They were supportive?
Oh, yeah. My dad was super supportive with it. So I packed everything up. I wouldn't move my stuff back. All I took was a mattress. And I threw that on the floor in his basement. He pointed out to me one time, he's like, you realize all those stories of started with nothing on just a mattress. He goes, you did that at the house. I was like, no way, I really did. Like, I didn't even connect it in my own head. He pointed it out one day. He goes, yeah, I remember you had a mattress and a blanket, and you used an old dresser that we had upstairs, put your stuff in.
Because that's just like this, it's this stereotypic story of the budding entrepreneur that, I got rid of everything and I had a mattress on the floor and a nightstand.
And I didn't even put two and two together because I didn't look at my own story that way until he pointed it out. But so I moved home with him. So I would ride with her to all the parties. Well, then she would rile the moms up to mess with me for enjoyment. She'd get a giggle out of it. I'd be like, hey, come stand by me. She'd be like, oh, no. Marianne said she's got to talk to you over there. I'd be like, can we leave yet? She keeps pinching my butt. And Casey'd be like, this is hilarious. Like she ended up, and so we didn't even catch it. And some of the parents from back then, I'm still friends with a lot of them, will be like, we always seen it.
Yeah.
You two just never seen it. And it was one of those things. I had friends reach out. They're like, how did you too? And I'm like, it just works. They're like, what do you mean? I'm like, it's the only way I know how to describe it. It works. We complement each other, but we also are both very competitive, very passionate. So the fights are brutal. When we fight, we go up to town, like we get pissed at each other, but we've grown so much together.
Yeah.
And it's one of those cliche things, like I couldn't do it without her, but really and truthfully, I mean, I probably could have done stuff to a point, but not to where we're at. It's such a two-part thing that I don't think she grasps that all the time. There's times that she'll be like, thinks it's kind of just the me show. And then I'll put up stuff with me and her. Like when she came in to do my podcast, I put up thing that had more traction on it than anything I posted.
Yeah.
Anything with all the ladies she knows wanting to hear her side of stuff. And I was like, I kept sending it to her. I'm like, could you pull up on your Facebook? What's your second? It was like the second most popular thing on my page forever. And I'm like, because I kept trying to convince her to do stuff with me and she gets really nervous about it. I'm like, people want to hear your side. They like the couples. They love that. So it just worked out for us.
See, and that's kind of how we did things too. That's why this all became a thing, because I told her, like she talked about earlier, pushing her out of her comfort zone. I said,
That's
you got to
I push her out of her comfort
I have to. I said, but you have to understand that, like, for me to say that I've been with you for over 22 years, they want to know who you are.
Yes.
Okay. And how did you become who you are that we all know? We know you. We know your face. We know what you're up to. We see you around. We see all the stuff you're doing. She had to have a giant part in that, right? Or was she always just this meek little person that sat in the corner and listened to everything I said? I said, absolutely not.
Yeah.
That's not how it works.
No.
We always preach. We always preach the 50-50 thing.
Yeah.
And I don't mean 50-50 as if she does half and I do half. We're 100% invested in this together.
For sure.
And so 50-50 is sometimes, like I said, it's 80-20 or 70-30 or 60-40 or 0-100 some days. But we're in this together. 50-50 means together. And so when we started this, I said, I think we're missing a whole demographic of people that want to know what a woman's side of the business looks like. From being a mother to being a supporter to doing books to doing all the backside of things that nobody else gets to see. They just see it running, and they see you like me. They see me driving a truck. They see me working on a truck. They see me, working with people on their businesses. They don't understand that when I get all that information together, if she wasn't able to make it there, I then go back home that night and have another full-fledged meeting. We'll meet with somebody today. I finally got her on a day where she's coming with me so we can go to his facility together, and she can look at it instead of me just explaining to her and showing her pictures.
Yeah,
because a lot of that information comes from her ideas and stuff. Then I can implement those things, or I can take a little bit of what I think what will work because I've done it, and her ideas, and go, you know what, that's a great idea. Let's try that.
Oh, it's a total. It's a total merging of the two people. And the thing that's wild that I try to explain, like my podcast, for example, is I've almost had all women, like not as many.
I
guys,
noticed that. It's
because so many women business owners are the face of their business. Or, the husband might have a job and the wife is the entrepreneur.
Right.
Yeah.
It was interesting at the DECA conference how the guys, they produced a different plan than the girls did. The girls were much more outside the box. The guys were just following the rules given to them.
Yeah.
That's how most of the women are. Because I actually sat down and looked at my lineup. I'm like, do I have any? Am I not? How many businesses out here are women owned and women ran? Because so many of them are realtors, and they're the face of the business, or they're the one in the community, or they're the one that maybe they have the flexibility because they're taking the kids to school. They can swing by and shoot a podcast. It's more of a majority than it is the men doing it, and I don't think that's picked up on by a lot of people. But I think there's a lot more female entrepreneurs than ever these days.
Yeah, there really is.
And they want to hear how other women are doing it. When they see the businesses and everything that Casey and I have, they're like, but you guys also travel with the kids. And, I try to put up these gratitude posts once in a while and not sound fake about it, but she gets the kids on and off the bus. She makes the dinners. She sends the bids. She handles so much. She has two phones. I only have one. She has the office phone on her. Like, I couldn't do that when the painting company really started taking off, when I decided to leave my daytime job. I had hired a couple employees that the boss had let go, or people I bumped into. The Taekwondo school, really, it's wild how I've been able to, both businesses complement each other, and you'd never think that. Because so many people bring their kids in, also need their house painted, but they also have family members that are painters. Yeah. So a lot of my people that paint for me, their kids come to my school, or a family member does.
Gotcha.
And I had started painting houses, and we had saved up money to buy our own house. And we had $50,000 set aside. And I texted her one day. I was like, I had more employees than my boss had. I didn't realize that. I was in such a just show up. I had Obamacare racked our insurance through the roof. So I went back painting full time because I had union insurance. It was a no brainer. Plus I made $30+ an hour. So it was great. It just meant a lot of hours for me because I had the martial arts school at the time.
Yeah.
So we went out, we were doing it, and I couldn't have done that without her. Cause I'd asked her, I'm like, we got 50 grand saved up to buy you a house. We were in an apartment while we were trying to figure out, cause with the businesses, we weren't sure where we wanted to live, but I didn't want to buy a house and then be like, oh, now the business, we're doing a lot of work. Like the Taekwondo school's in Troy. I didn't want to buy a house in Troy if the school wasn't going to take off. It hadn't really settled yet.
Sure.
And I had been in Wentzville, so we were just kind of on the fence. And she let me take that 50 grand and start the business. And then as it really took off, I was like, I need you to quit your job.
So the 50 grand you saved for the house.
That was a down payment on a house.
Was a down payment, which actually ended up funding the beginning of your business.
And I texted her and was like, hey, can I take that 50K and go start a painting company?
I cannot tell you how many times she has saved and I have taken that money to do something else. And then she saves. And I'm like, I didn't even know you had this saved. And she's like, yeah.
Yeah.
I can't tell you.
I can't tell you sometimes because you'll have an idea and we need to do it.
That's something I talked to an accountant about one time, and they're like, we need invisible accounts for you. Because when you see 10 grand over here, you're going, you know what I can do with that 10 grand? I can go to this seminar and I can probably learn this one thing that's going to make me 100. And she goes, and now you have no savings again, but you went to a really cool seminar. And I'm like, yeah, but look where I'm at. And they're like, no, I'm not saying it's wrong.
But then once I use that, if that made me 100, now I'm going to look at that 100 and go, if we took that 100 and we said, it's just, but I think that's also what gets us where we're at.
Yes.
Because that investment in yourself, like you said, it's a journey that you've taken fairly recently, I'm assuming.
Yeah.
Okay. It's something that's probably been in my path for about 2 years, maybe steady.
About the same for me on the whole personal development.
Business was business and I was doing it. And I was like, what's next level here? What's next on this thing? We've talked about that. I'm like, where is this going? Is this the hamster wheel?
My brain works. Okay, I got this. I've done this.
And I'm looking at these guys and I'm watching with some of them we talked about here in the beginning, and I'm going, these guys are doing big shit. Why are they doing big shit? What did they do?
What's tripped up here?
And the same steady answer amongst all of them were they invested in themselves.
Yep.
They either got coaches, mentors, they went to the people. And the fact of the matter is it's a pay to play game.
For sure.
I hope to be in the place where if people want me, they also have to pay for that.
For sure.
It just is what it is.
It's just a respect thing. Yeah. My wife will see the fees that some people charge and I'll be like, that's dope. That's cool. That's cool. They charge that. She's like, wow, it's a lot. I'm like, no. But I can't say that's a lot because I want someone to pay me that one.
Yes.
Right.
I respect
I can't
that.
shit on that.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, I watch people that do that and it's like, hold on, you're building a coaching program. You're shitting on these guys, but you want to make that one day, don't you?
Yeah.
Oh, I'm just in it. BS, you want the Lamborghini money. I don't want to hear that crap. Like, we all want to help people, but I want to get paid.
Well, because right now we're giving it away for free.
Yes.
You know, I can't tell you how many people we've helped develop themselves and develop themselves from, making 40 or 50,000 a year to making $120,000, $150,000 a year. And those are people working a 9 to 5.
Yeah.
Just because personally we help them develop or we help them get licensing or
sometimes it's just the motivation.
And I'm fine with that. I don't mind helping people, but the mind shift was, there's a business opportunity here because that's where my mind always goes. And then when I started seeing the greats go, this is what we're doing. Am I giving a positive message? Do I mean everything?
Yes.
Am I living exactly like I'm telling you? Yes, I am. That's how I got where I'm at. And where I'm going to the next level is by teaching you how to get there.
And two things happened with me. Found Grant Cardone, loved his stuff. Friend Josh Smith shared his book, and I had struggled with so much over years, and he starts one of the books, Be Obsessed or Be Average. He goes, I need 25/8. I need more work. I need more days. He goes, I had drug problems. I had this, I had this. I never had the drug problems, but I got really depressed. I gained weight, all this because I was dead set I was going to do everything with just one business. But the way I like to run my martial arts school isn't like a business. It's not, I'm not to that point yet with that. So I go, you know what? I got to start something that really does something big.
Yeah.
And I realized listening to that book, because he talks about it, hire you coach, 10%. I think it's 10% of your income every year should go into you. And I was like, so bullshit, trying to sell everybody on coaching.
Yeah, that's what my mindset was.
But then my
too.
brain kind of thought back to when I got my 6th degree black belt Taekwondo. Master Wadley spoke, and he goes, for you to ever teach forever be a teacher. You have to forever be a student, and you need to find an instructor, and you need to always train and work out, because that's where everybody goes wrong.
Yeah.
And I respected the hell out of him for that, because there's a lot of guys that get their high ranks, they quit training, they quit finding mentors, and
That's great.
they just fall apart.
That's a great outlook. That
And
really
I
is.
remember when he said that, and then hearing Grant Cardone, I was like, well, it's the same message. So then I just started any book that popped up, and I'd find some I didn't like, and I'd find some I liked, and I loved them. And then as like the success came with the businesses, and you're noticed in your community, we won some awards, got some recognition, you know, things just happened. But as I got a little older, I'm 41, I started noticing people gravitating towards me with questions. I had my whole day one time had fallen apart, had just nothing but problems with the painting business, stressed out, taught my classes, because that's like my mental health. I love that place, seeing the youth and what they do. And this isn't like a tagline. I leave there in such a better mood. When I go in and my instructors come in talking about their wins and the great things they did, I'm pumped.
Yeah.
But one of my students had like a breakdown that night, crying. She was upset. I ended up sitting with her for like an hour. And I wasn't at the time, I hadn't really went back to church, wasn't what I would always say, oh, I'm not real religious.
Yeah.
That was my tagline. I'm not real religious. And I walked out back and I just looked up at the sky. I'm like, okay, why are you doing this? I have had all this shit today. I don't drink. I don't eat bad. I can't go to the gym again because I'm exhausted. Why did you just dump this on me too, to where I've got this girl having a total breakdown, crying about her family and confiding to me? And I told my wife, I'm like, man, I just don't know. Well, then it happened again with someone else. Then I started noticing parents at the school, like dads that hang out at the desk, be like, you know, how do you do what you do with your kids? I'm like, what do you mean? Because we travel all over, we go to tournaments, and I coach them. They're up to school with me, and I coach them like a coach. I'm not dad when I'm coaching them. Like, they get kind of pissy because I'll be like, yes, sir.
I'm probably going to be a little harder on you than I will normal people.
And I
My
have
expectations
I
are
have
higher.
to chill myself out once in a while because they've been doing it for so long, and I see their talent. Just like any student that I can see potential in, I'm harder on.
Yeah.
And I would just, oh yeah, you know, whatever. And they'd be like, so what's that workout you're doing? I was like, oh, it's just 75 hard or whatever. I just kind of blow it off. And I was like, all these people keep asking me, like, my shit is not together. Why does everybody keep asking me for help? Like, and it just kept happening and kept happening and kept happening. And the different things that pop up. And I probably 10 different friends of mine had businesses reaching out about questions, this and that, little silly stuff. Hey man, working on a tagline. What you got? Boom, I shot them 3 different cool taglines because they liked mine. I was like, glad that could help. And another friend was like, you know, I'm doing martial arts. I'm doing this and that. You know, what's some tips? And we went back and forth on, and I was like, man, I really like helping these people. And so then my brain went, okay, how can I do this for a living and not fight with painters and fight with contractors and deal with some of the BS that really and truthfully wasn't filling, you know, to be cliche, wasn't filling my cup.
It wasn't filling your internal bank.
Yes,
it was
it
filling your
wasn't-
external
yeah.
bank, but not your. And Tim,
It wasn't making
Michael
me feel
Burt
good.
talks about that.
Okay.
He talks about your internal and your external bank.
Ooh.
And the purpose in life, when you find it, like that moment right there, I had the same similar set of circumstances happen. And I'm like, wait a second, it's selfish, but it's good.
Yes.
So it's a selfish thing because I get something out
I
of it.
feel good, yes.
But I helped somebody.
Yes.
But then my business mind turns around and goes, now all these people that I'm watching and stuff, and if I'm going to invest in a mentor, I'm getting something from them. They're getting fulfilled because they're getting their internal bank filled, but they're also getting their external bank filled. So that's when I need to figure out, how do I form all this so I can be happy and help other people?
Well, and I was always chronic about not charging enough for my time. I love martial arts. I always work with kids. I'm really bad at saying no to stuff. And I struggle with it. When I got the painting company, I was much better about it because I had employees counting on me, and I had so much payroll and different things.
Overhead, like, you got. It's a math game at that point.
Yeah, it changed my view. But then
and you're judging their time now because you know what you're paying them per hour. So now I can put a number on that when I'm doing my time. Hey, it's my time. I can fudge it a little bit.
Well, but if I short a job and that causes us to have a bad week, now I'm putting their livelihood in danger because I'm being irresponsible with my business. But so I would watch all these people and I'm like, well, they speak, they do this, they do that. And I didn't realize how much speakers got paid. I didn't realize how much coaches got paid until I started really looking into it. So I'm like, okay, I'm being drawn into this. Well, then I started putting up some different content. A friend of mine, Josh, is one of my biggest motivators. He puts up stuff and I, just never had the balls to do it. I was like, man, that's just cool. Well, then Kyle Landwehr, if I pronounce, sorry if I messed your name up. he would post stuff and I'm like, well, I made that same amount of money.
Yeah.
I was like, I can do that. So when I started noticing people, I thought you had to be like a $10-20 million dude to share your experience. I'm like, no, we all have experience. I'm just not going to charge what a guy that's going to teach you how to make $20 million charges.
The qualification to be that person is have been where the people that are asking you how to get there.
Yep. Just like we talked. Yep.
Correct.
Yep.
You qualified to do it because you've been there
and
they have
I
not.
didn't realize it.
Or you're a little less of a problem than this guy's having a serious problem right now. So that's the qualification. Like you said, we're like, if I'm not making $100 million, how is everybody going to take me seriously? Because they're not making it even $1 million.
Yes.
And you've more than done that.
So there
so
you go.
you're qualified.
Well, and my thing was I didn't realize that. And then I started realizing that I watch other guys that are in the same bracket basically as I am in business, and I'm motivated as all get out. So I started forcing myself to post. Well, then all of a sudden, friends from 20 years ago message me, man, I've been going through some shit and I look forward to seeing what you put up every day. So then I'm like, oh, wow. Okay. So this is bigger than me. I need to put this up every day because there's people watching for it. Then another friend messaged me and said, hey, at our meeting this week, she owns a salon. She goes, I read your post to start our meeting. And that stuff started coming in. And then I was at a martial arts tournament. My buddy grabbed me, and he's a big dude. He's the type of guy I look up to. And he's like, the other day I was going to skip my workout, and damn, if your story didn't show you're at the gym. He said, and I was like, Matt fucking did it. I got to go do it. And so I started messing with him. I was like, man, because he got out and he ran his form. I'm like, oh, no. You didn't do very good today. I didn't come down here for bullshit. I came down here to compete. And I was like, Justin is 6'5", 315.
Wow.
So I'm like popping him in the chest. I'm like, you better get out there and do your damn best because I didn't come here to walk all over you because I won that division. I was like, I came here I like a challenge.
I want a competition.
If I walk in and the dudes in my division are so-so, and I'm a so-so guy, but I rise to the occasion.
Yeah,
like if there's a dude in my division that is a killer, I mean, it ups my game. It lights me up. But if I don't feel that they're a killer, I'm like, So I was getting him all pumped up. I'm like, you better bring it today. He got out there, ran a crazy good form. I had to run mine. Felt great. Well, pulls me aside. He was going through a breakup, had a lot of problems. He goes, I really needed that today. Thank you. And I'm looking up this dude. I'm like, wow, I did it to be, I was selfish. I was pissed. I came down there to compete. I had 1 week till I left the country to compete for Team USA. My coach that has been working with me, Brett Thompson, is a multi-world champion, a very talented, respected martial artist. I knew, even though he got me ready for the event, we were going to go toe-to-toe at Worlds. Yeah, I just knew it. It was going to happen, and we did. And it took us both to a whole new level. Like, we were so pumped and getting ready. And he to show you what type of guy he is, I was getting ready to compete against him for a world title. And he goes, when you punch, you roll your shoulder, keep it straight. That'll dock you on points today. And I was like, wow. Like, it blew me away at that type of camaraderie that even going
even though you were
toe-to-toe.
competing, he still was going to help you.
And we were both like pacing, get warmed up.
Which adds a whole nother level of something that you understand when you get to the top.
Yep.
That they collaborate.
Right.
They don't always just compete.
No, we were getting up there, but we were working together.
We're competitive, but competitive in the way that, like, when you start to talk about the 1%, there's a few people that'll rise to that occasion.
Yep.
So why be up there alone? Because we can all pull each other a lot further along. If we just kind of work together a little bit.
Give me a doubter or a hater, and it'll send me to a low level. If I get somebody that's messing with me and hating on me, Casey's like, oh, fuck. Oh, what are you going to do now? And I'm like, oh, I'm vindictive.
Have you heard that study about low performers and high performers and being in a proximity of them, what it does to your... So I think it was Cody Sanchez that had talked about this.
I love her.
I love her. She's awesome. So she had said that there was a study done. Don't remember where it was done, so don't quote me.
Yeah.
But basically, they said that if you take a good person and you put them next to a low performer, it will lower their standards 30%.
Sure.
Takes the fire out of you.
Yeah.
Yeah. But if you put them next to somebody who's a high performer, I got that backwards, it lowers them 15%.
Yeah.
But if you put them next to somebody who's a high performer, it raises them 30%.
Yeah.
So they actually have a double increase off of
the best I've ever
the
ran.
upside than the negative on the downside.
Yep.
So by proximity, you're better off to be around people who are doing big things because they're going to up your game twice as much as the guy that'll pull you down.
Oh, for sure. No, and I've always noticed that about me. I thought it was just a personality thing. But I know, like, in the division we were in, the guy I had, so getting ready for a tournament, we practiced all our stuff, and we had to do a backup kata. It's a pattern of movements. And everybody's like, don't practice that. Nobody ever ties. I'm going for the Korean division, the division I wanted to win. I at least wanted to go to the finals because I knew I got to go against Brett. Brett smoked us. I knew I had to go against him. And we bowed out, and they're like, you two tied. Kid I tied against is ultra talented. And I stepped out of the ring, and Kendall was standing there, and I was like, I tied against him. She's like, well, like he's gonna be. I'm like, oh. And I walk past Brett. He's like, what you getting ready to do? I was like, I'm going to change some people in this room today. And we got done. Brett's like, where did that come from? I was like, I don't know. But Kendall looked at me like she doubted me. And he's like, ooh. He's like, Kendall, look at him like that more. Do it more. But not when we compete. Just do it other times. Like we had so much fun. Like I think it really screws with people too, like the camaraderie we have, and then how turn it on and go compete. But that's what people at that level do.
Right.
When I meet someone that's higher level in business, they're always like, what can I do to help?
Yeah.
And I do the same thing. When I meet people, I want to help. But when you meet someone that's lower, you can just feel the snaky.
Yeah.
You could feel them being a snake. And
they want to take. They want to take. They've got nothing to give, but they will take.
Yes.
And that takes away from your energy. It takes away from your care. It starts to kind of nick at the paint, so to speak. You know what I mean? Right. And so it starts to chip it away, and you're just like, that gets discouraging. When you start to deal with high level people, you're like, now this is motivating.
Yes.
Dealing with all this down here, I can tell you what you need to do to get in the right mind frame to go where we go.
Yeah.
But I can't make you do it.
But I can even tell, like us, like working together and stuff, when you started this journey and started doing better for yourself, that definitely pushed me, because we too can be very competitive.
Oh yeah, yes. Me and my wife, it gets ugly.
Yes.
We have to watch it. Yeah, my kids are the same way.
So when Bobby was working on different things, like for the podcast and stuff, and he's like, "Well, I'm going to do this and stuff," and then in the beginning, I'm like, "I'm absolutely not. I can't do it. You know, not my kind of thing." And then the more he does it, I'm like, I'm not going to let you do that by yourself. Yeah. I can stand up there with you. I can sit there with you. I can talk with you, and I can hold my own. And so that's really pushed me, which then pushes him even further.
But what's funny is she never understood the fact that I wanted her here the whole time.
Yeah.
But I knew it wasn't comfortable for her, and I would push her a little bit. And then as she would start to come, I'd be like, okay. And I'd push a little more, and then she'd start, and so you're like, the more she got involved with it, the more I realized we haven't worked together for probably 25 years. Well, that's when we met. We worked together.
Yeah, okay.
So, well, I guess it would be like 22 years. But anyway, we worked really well together, but we were teenagers.
But we worked for somebody else.
And we worked for somebody else.
That's different.
But the stress and stuff, and we talk about how, through even starting your studio, there's a lot of stress associated with that. You've got overhead, you know what I mean? And if you've got 10 students in there, they might not be floating it. Your job might be funding that for a long time.
I would do side jobs all the time. I had
just to pay those bills.
The second July we were opened, I learned. So the first year we were open, we only had about 30 students. Super loyal group. Not a single person quit. Once we started getting to the bigger numbers, then I started having fluctuations. And the second July, half the school decided to go on vacation. Take the summer and chill, and we didn't have any type of contracts, auto pays, nothing. So all of a sudden I didn't have any payments.
Yeah.
My dad's like, what are you going to do? I said, I'm getting ready to have an auction. He goes, what? I hopped on Craigslist. I had a 58 Impala that was all Bondo, but it was a car I'd had for years. I had a 88 Cadillac, 89 Cutlass, and there was a fourth car. I can't remember what the fourth car was. All sitting there. I threw them up all on Craigslist. And I told everybody at the same exact time. Show up at the house. My dad's like, what are you going to do? I said, I'm going to make my rent tonight. And I stood out front. And the guy's like, well, you had a car list for $1,500. I was like, well, since everybody's here at the same time, we're having an auction today. So let's see what happens. I sold every single car. The one dude showed up. So before everybody got there, this kid I knew was a good friend of mine's. Basically, ended up being his son-in-law later. I was like, I want the Cutlass. I said, all right. What do you got? So he sold it to me. Well, I had a dude coming from North County to get it, and I couldn't get a hold of him. He had to get his girlfriend to drive him. Well, he rolls up. He's like, where's the Cutlass? I was like, man, you're in luck. I'm putting you in a Cadillac today. Man, I came to buy a Cutlass. And he was a big dude. He was not happy. And I'm like, come on, sit in. I had him sit. We drove the Cadillac around the block. I sold him a Cadillac. My dad stood out front. He was like, damn.
But that was a back against the wall moment for you.
My back was against the wall. I had to make the rent. I didn't have a side job lined up because I'd always line up. If at any time in my life anything got hard, a side job would appear. Yeah. Someone would call and be like, hey, Matt, I need a house paint.
It's
boom,
the
$3-4
opportunities.
grand. I'd go do it. I'd pay all my bills on the school.
The money didn't show up on your doorstep. The opportunity to make the money did.
Yes. Yeah. And that's where people get it wrong.
They do get it wrong. They pray for the thing instead of praying for the opportunity to achieve the thing.
Yes.
And if they would change their way that they do that, they would
Yes.
understand they present themselves. They miss them a lot of times is the problem.
Well, and they see people like us that have done well, and they don't realize that we capitalize on the opportunities. I
At
saw
a risk,
yes.
we capitalize. That could have went very badly.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Dude. Yeah, he was a little.
Even the other guys that showed up together.
Yeah.
And they're all like, "What's going on here?" And you're like, "Oh, we're gonna have." Every one of them could have gave you the middle finger
Yeah.
and ran out and
Yeah.
been like, "Screw you," and then no rent.
Yeah, nope.
So-
and I made it, and that's what people don't realize though is the success stories. That's what blew me away, like the book.
Mm-hmm.
He's ran into so many of the problems in the early days of Nike that I ran into, that I've still come across with stuff that I was like, well, no, I'm at this point now. I don't have to deal with this bullshit. And it still happened.
Yeah.
That blew me away. And it inspires me so much when you hear from these guys that are so successful and you're like, wow,
It's the time.
he had to do that too.
Yeah.
It's just part of the paying the dues. It
Yes.
just doesn't happen easy. And that's how it always has been. We would there's things that I did in the businesses that I thought was going to be just groundbreaking, change the game,
Yeah.
that backfired.
Yeah.
It backfired in a way. Okay, so I shouldn't say it backfired. It didn't backfire, but it did not put the results that I thought it would. I figured by the way I structured the painting company,
Yeah.
I'd have a line a mile long of employees. I'd be to 50 guys by now. No, a lot of guys were like, I don't want a boss. I don't want to drive your van.
Yeah.
I don't want a W-2. I just want cash.
Yep.
I don't need
Especially
health
in that
insurance.
trade that you're talking about.
Yeah. Yep, it was
Construction
in
in
the
general,
construction
that's
trade,
a
yeah.
very
Yeah.
I
deal.
thought that's what I would want. I realized I didn't think like I right. Now, with that being said, the 8 guys I got, I've had forever. They're great. They're there because of those things I offer.
Mhm.
And they don't leave because of those things and because of the reliability of work. A lot of guys, I lose a lot of guys in the winter when I bulk up over the summer because they're used to being laid off. Well,
Yes.
I structure all of my accounts to where we don't have that.
Yes.
Right.
This last
We do
year,
the same thing.
I laid a couple people off, and that was the first time in 5 years I've ever done it. And it was because it was just because I had too much work and I was stretched way too thin with all my builders that I couldn't afford to keep them. It really wasn't a work issue. I just could not handle that many employees.
Mhm.
It was beyond what we could handle. I was floated out several $100,000 on paint jobs for
Yep.
builders. It was just, I couldn't do
It
it.
gets to be too much.
And that was the only time I've ever had that. I've never laid anyone else
Now,
off.
when you hit that wall, so to speak, was that the only option that you thought you had, or was there an option to try to figure out now how can I reduce these receivables and keep these guys and push this company further?
I basically went through every option I could. I went to do every loan, everything I could. But because of it was hard to explain to a lot of banks, like, because having a business and building it over years, I don't have perfect credit.
Yeah.
And trying to show them that I have all these bills. We've painted, like we had over like $148,000 worth of houses halfway painted. And I'm like, all this will be coming in. They don't see it. And
Right.
because I don't have like an actual item,
Mhm.
they didn't want a loan on it.
Do they offer any type of factoring services in your industry?
What do you mean by that?
So in my industry, they offer factoring. There's companies that offer factoring services. What they'll do is they will take your receivables and they might charge you like 1 to 3%. Sorry.
Uh-huh.
And they will pay you now and they'll hold the receivable for
Well,
that duration.
The banks had told me that originally, that they would do stuff like that. And what they did when we did it, it was like, well, it's not really guaranteed because it's not like I sold a product.
Mhm.
We're providing a service.
Mhm.
And
So no tangible good to take.
basically, they also look at the statistics on the industry
Mhm.
and how many construction companies and painters, whatnot,
Mm-hmm.
all go under. And that really
Gotcha.
affects it too,
Right.
that they're
Gotcha.
like, we see what you're doing, but your industry sucks. So I went through about everything I could.
It's a problem
And-
too, though. That's a problem.
Yes.
Because there's nothing worse than working with banks that treat you like a number. I get that they have
Well, and-
underwriters. I get that they have parameters. But when you find a place, like we bank with a place that started treating me like a person, they
Yes.
took risks with me.
Yes. And mine has done that. This
Yeah.
was just beyond what they wanted to do.
Gotcha.
Because they know as well as I do, if one of the builders says, I'm not going to pay you, now I'm tied up in a legal
Yes.
battle.
Yes.
They know that the law is more on their side than mine.
Yes.
And I tried about everything. And there wasn't enough repaint work. When a repaint's, paint now, paid now, no net 30.
Yes.
Out there through the winter, because once the holidays set in, most people put up all their decorations. They don't want you in their house. It's
Yeah.
how it is every year. Our
Yeah.
builder work carries us through the winter. I just had an absolute insane amount of it.
And do the builders just hold such a high receivable for you because they're selling the house, so they're waiting to get paid to pay you?
They just do their net 30, and
Is it
they
standard
don't pay a date. Yeah,
practice?
that's just standard practice.
Gotcha.
And they don't do a deposit up front, anything like that. And we just had so much of it, which good for them. They're super busy. So basically, I grew the company. I remember doing my first $14,000 bid, my first $50,000 bid, and then there was a week I bid $1 million in work, and I got it. So we had just hundreds of and I knew when I did it, 8 months before winter, I was like, winter's going to be rough if I don't juggle everything just right.
Mm-hmm.
When winter got here, the repaint slowed down. So all we had was the construction work, and I didn't have the money to carry it.
Yeah.
And I didn't ever want to have to look an employee in the eye and say, I got your paycheck this week.
Yes.
Now I have looked my mortgage holder in the eye and been like, I'll catch you next month, buddy.
See,
I do that all the time, and people don't think shit about that.
You know, but that's awesome that you would be willing to say that, because all of us do that.
Oh, yeah.
Even the big guys do that.
Yep.
I mean, Brad Lee talks about how he wrote a check.
They talk about it in there.
He wrote a check for the building he moved into that was not going to clear until he went and sold some shit.
He talks about it in there. Phil Knight did
because
the same
that's
thing.
the risk that the big guys take
Yep.
to get where they're at that nobody else wants to do because it's too far outside their comfort zone. Could you fail? Absolutely. But what are you betting on?
Yep. I've literally been told you can pick up checks today from a builder. Wrote a check that morning for $15,000 worth of materials to land a big job over here. I just prayed that one came in.
It all worked out like it was supposed
and
to.
it all floated out. And that's one thing I have to say. My bank has been great with working with me on that. But with all the builder stuff and the way the market was and their experiences too with the builders, they were like, they couldn't do it. So it came down to I exhausted every single avenue, everything I could to finally had to make that decision.
Gotcha.
You know, it was just that was where it was at. And that was the decision I had to make going through the winter.
This is partners in the process.